Look at the sheer irony of global geopolitics today. When the Chinese president finally met with Donald Trump, the Grand Master Plan painstakingly engineered by Iran unfolded exactly as designed. They successfully threw the United States right in front of China, like throwing a deer to a lion. That is exactly what has happened. Forget the diplomatic theatrics of the summit. Pay attention to the tone. Trump's tone, his demeanor, his entire posture has completely shifted. The most significant and shocking development occurred the moment these leaders sat face to face. The very first words Trump said to China were absolutely staggering. He stated that the U.S. no longer wants a fight. He said, "Enough is enough. We have battled each other long enough, and we can no longer afford to be enemies." Now, obviously, the moment he returns to Washington, the rhetoric will likely change again, but understand why he is saying this now. He was essentially sent by Israel to aggressively confront Xi Jinping, to lash out at Beijing, but Iran has weakened the U.S. position so severely that when Trump was finally placed across the table from China, he had no choice but to change his tune. Trump is now pleading with the Chinese president. He is essentially saying, "Look, first and foremost, you need to tell Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. You need to go and explain to them that keeping it closed is tantamount to destroying the entire world economy. The damage is catastrophic, and they must open the strait immediately." Think about the sheer magnitude of what Trump is conveying here. In response, China sees its ultimate leverage. They are essentially saying, "Fine, we will talk to Iran, but since you are now clearly ready to surrender, you need to back out of Taiwan. Drop your plans to or more liberate Taiwan." Previously, Trump boasted that he didn't need any help from China whatsoever. Now he is practically begging them to intervene, asking China to convince Iran to end the war and come to the negotiating table because the global economy is collapsing. Trump claims he could drag this war out, but the global destruction is too immense, so he wants a resolution now. Meanwhile, China is quietly and massively stockpiling Iranian oil. Trump knows this war has become incredibly unpopular back home. He now tells Xi Jinping that they must become partners, not rivals, that they must avoid conflict. This is the exact same Trump who previously bragged that he could destroy the economies of both Iran and China simultaneously. He used to say he could wipe out China's economy in a single day, but this is the stark difference between boasting on a campaign trail and sitting face to face with a global powerhouse. There are only two ways to achieve dominance, through war or through strategic diplomacy and peace. China is mastering the second route. They know that you don't need to poison someone who is willing to drink honey until they die. Right now, America needs honey far more than poison, and China is feeding it to them by the ton. You have to understand that China is in no rush to stop this war. In fact, Beijing benefits if the war drags on and the U.S. continues to bleed out. Just yesterday, Democratic lawmakers openly admitted that 39 U.S. aircraft have already been destroyed. Stopping this war has become an absolute necessity for America. China may publicly state that they want diplomacy, but behind closed doors, they are thrilled watching the superpower take a massive beating. The only reason Trump went to Beijing is that the key to unlocking the Strait of Hormuz is currently resting in China's pocket. When China speaks to Iran, their words carry heavy weight. Iran won't listen to Pakistan, India, Europe, or Oman, but they will listen to China and Russia. China operates on a 100-year plan. They want to defeat America without firing a single bullet, and the U.S. leadership has finally realized this. Trump desperately tried to force a logical conclusion to this conflict before his trip to China, but he failed. Now, America is begging China for concessions. China is more than willing to grant those concessions, but every single favor will come with a massive, silent price tag attached. For America, the biggest immediate concession is reopening the Strait of Hormuz because global oil prices are unmanageable, pushing the entire world, including India, into a severe recession. China will grant this concession, but only at the cost of Taiwan, guaranteed non-aggression pacts against Iran, and further control over the South China Sea. China will demand the removal of global trade tariffs and ensure that the U.S. cannot strike again. Whether it's the semiconductor chip industry or global trade dominance, China will demand total coverage. China is also arguing that keeping the Strait of Hormuz closed and keeping the U.S. bogged down is detrimental to the entire world. Yet China is still receiving cheap oil. Consider this: if China stopped buying Iranian oil, global prices would easily skyrocket to $140 or $150 a barrel. In a twisted way, America actually needs China to keep buying that oil, which is why Chinese naval escorts are currently protecting those shipments. If the strait remains closed, America is trapped. If it opens, everyone else gets trapped under China's direct access to massive oil reserves. Why would China ever engage in direct warfare with the U.S.? They are watching the superpower fail on every single front right now. It is no secret how heavily China has backed Iran. Trump knows perfectly well that Chinese companies provided the critical satellite data and intelligence that allowed Iran to launch precise, devastating strikes that destroyed American jets and assets. The situation has become incredibly challenging for Washington. It is a bizarre, historic moment. The U.S. is now pressuring China to pressure Iran to stop the war, begging them to make Iran understand that the world is being destroyed. But China isn't foolish. They will simply ask, who is the root cause of this conflict? You need to pull your bases out. China will only negotiate if there is a massive geopolitical trade-off. This was exactly what Iran wanted. Iran needed guarantees that the U.S. and Israel wouldn't attack. Who could provide that guarantee? Not Europe, not Qatar, not Saudi Arabia. Only China. Only Beijing has the leverage to offer a guarantee that Iran will actually trust, perhaps alongside Russia. Forget the grand welcome and the red carpets rolled out for Trump in Beijing. The real story is what is happening at the negotiating table. The very first topic on the agenda is practically begging China to talk to Iran. Even the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has openly admitted they have asked China to intervene. The American media is desperately trying to manage the markets by claiming that the U.S. and China have agreed that ships passing through the strait should not be taxed. But these are just PR spins. Do you really think Iran will easily walk away from a $500 billion geopolitical advantage? A quick message before we move forward. Thank you to everyone backing us. You are the reason we can keep the truth alive. Since the platforms we post on have entirely restricted our monetization, your direct support is our only way to cover the massive research behind these videos. Whether it's a one-time coffee or a monthly pledge, every bit helps our mission stay 100% independent. You'll find the links below or in the comments. Please follow to stay updated, and let's get back to the analysis. Iran has now explicitly stated that alongside Israel, they will be settling scores with all allied nations involved in this coalition. Suddenly, US officials are desperately claiming that progress is being made to de-escalate tensions. But wait, weren't they just demanding absolute surrender? The reality is, they are literally begging for a way out. They are pleading for intervention because the alternative is complete devastation for the American economy. This was Iran's master plan all along. When China negotiates, they will secure their own interests, protect Russia's interests, and lock down their future dominance. Think about it for just 1 minute. If America was actually winning this war, would Trump be making this desperate trip to Beijing? Would he be sitting there saying they need China's help? Absolutely not. There would be no negotiations and no summit. When you look at the entire geopolitical board, it is crystal clear that the situation is deteriorating rapidly for the West. They have reached a point of absolute helplessness. Israel wanted Trump to go to China and show rage, but instead he is negotiating terms of surrender, pleading with them to reason with Iran. If they are so confident, why don't they just go and strike? Who is stopping them? They are ready to attack, so what is holding them back? They know they can't.